Obviously appreciated getting a chance to see all you guys out at practice yesterday for OTA number 2. We'll get back on the grass tomorrow for OTA 3, but just been a great start to obviously our off-season program before this week, but to truly now get into the organized kind of team structures where we can be offense versus defense, work some special teams, and the rules change in a way where we can really start to push our guys physically now. We've really challenged them in a lot of ways above the neck through the first 5 weeks and built our systems, and now we can kind of see what that really looks like as we build our team. Really also excited. Started out, really they got into town last night, but really got going this morning with our first annual diversity coaching summit that we're putting on here. Coach Pettin's going to kind of stand up and speak a little bit more on the details of it, but as far as getting 12 really qualified, diverse candidates in here today, professional development, building relationships, being around our team, being around our coaches, really should be a special couple days for those folks, and really excited to be able to do that in a way where we're hoping to really grow, not only opportunities for these 12, but really build upon this program in the future into training camp and really make it worthwhile for not only them, but the Minnesota Vikings as well. So I'll let Pet hit on that in a little bit, but with that, I'll open it up for some questions.
Kevin, how much of a sense can you get for position battles and where those things stand throughout OTAs?
I think you can get a feel for the information that guys have retained and now how they're taking it to the first phase of kind of competitive reps that we're going to have. And ultimately, the intent is to make sure we show up to training camp in our most competitive environment as we build towards the season in the fall. That's when the real competition will take place, put the pads on and really play football. But you can definitely get a feel for where guys are at mentally now, and then physically as well, as far as how certain skill sets will fit, offense, defense, guys' roles that they're currently comfortable with, and then, hey, how do we push these guys to understand within the competitions going on across the board, how they can thrive and really challenge themselves to really see what that will look like from a role standpoint in helping us win football games. So I think it's kind of the start. I told the team earlier this week it's kind of the start of that process, but by no means, are we, checking boxes thinking that we're doing anything more than just beginning that process and allowing them to go out there, play full speed, play fast, and make mistakes that hopefully we can coach off the tape, coach on the grass, and obviously be better each and every time we go out there.
You had talked about being eager to see Kellen Mond out on the grass.
Yep.
What are your impressions from what you've seen so far?
Yeah, Kellen's having a good spring so far, working incredibly hard, digesting the system. He made a couple checks yesterday at the line of scrimmage that, he wasn't prepared, play-by-play for, of, hey, make sure on play 12 you're ready to do this. He just kind of instinctively did that. Those are the little things you look for. Obviously, Sean had some great work at the line of scrimmage as well over on that other field when we were working kind of 2s versus 2s over there. But across the board, our quarterbacks have been a huge driving force, that whole room, all 4 of those guys. But behind getting our systems taught, installed, and then obviously taking it to the grass where now we're pitching, we're catching, we're getting in and out of bad plays, doing the things that we'll do in this offense, getting into the good plays and that premier mentality of we want to run the plays we want versus certain looks, and I can't be on the grass helping them do that. They ultimately have to take the things we've coached up in the meeting room and apply it when they're out there leading the group.
So what's your number one priority then? Is it them learning the terminology, the new system, or is it you just kind of learning each other?
I think we're kind of past the learning each other stage. I do think it's now taking, I wouldn't say we've got all of our systems in by any stretch, but it's taking the nuts and bolts of what we've coached, what we've taught, what we feel good about them in the classroom understanding, but now it's getting a chance to actually go out, competitively work against one another, and then really see where we're at from not only a mental standpoint, but hey, physically, where are you at in comparison to where you want to be when this thing gets really going in the fall. And training camp now, just looking ahead, I view it as an important time to make sure that now there is that day by day clock in the corner of the room. We cannot waste a moment. Not that we can now, but the urgency to teach and learn and kind of digest is there. The evaluation and the competition will start really kicking in the fall.
We saw Irv Smith out there running
Yeah.
some routes with the first team. Have you seen him progress both mentally and physically as he put more on his plate?
Yeah, it's mentally we've been asking a lot out of Irv and really all of our tight ends, and the multiplicity in which we line up, we operate, we do different things, and he's little by little every single day doing more and more. Hopefully we'll be able to get him into some of those competitive 7-on-7s, in the not too distant future. But the way we practice, the way we do some of that 11-on-11 work that you guys saw yesterday, I mean, everything from a communication standpoint, in and out of the huddle, play clock, substitutions, both groups are really getting those real reps to stress them, on where we're at right now. If we did have to go play a game or did have to go full speed against one another right now, we could, and we'd be ready to do that. But also, it's a little bit of a culture shock of, okay, this is real football now. And at some point, coaches will be off to the side, and we're going to have to take this as the group of 11 in whatever phase we're really working and go activate all the things we've been coaching and teaching. So I think for Irv, this whole spring is a great example of a player figuring out where he is coming off of his injury, but also understanding that he can really get a lot out of every day, knowing that he's preparing himself for when he is 100% ready to go.
How the team building went this offseason at that position. I mean, is it fair to say that you guys are counting on him to be a big part of what you're doing starting right away? I mean,
absolutely. I think Irv, I've said this before, going back and watching some of his tape even before the injury, I know there was a lot of folks excited about him last fall before that injury happened, and I think where he's at in his career and some of the success he's had, both with how we're going to use him, and then ultimately where, like I said, where he's at in his career, I think he's ready to kind of absorb all this and be in a position to go play fast, go play with a bunch of confidence that, he's going to be a major part of what we do, and it's just making sure that we're doing it in a really responsible way as he continues to progress back.
A number of young guys drafted last year that really didn't see the field, didn't have meaningful roles. Almost like you have two draft classes that you're trying to evaluate and see who fits. Is that kind of what this process is? Just evaluate a big group of young guys that really don't have a book on yet?
Yeah, I've told Kwesi, I've told our coaching staff, hey, we want to be able to form our own opinions about these players. Obviously, we've watched every bit of tape we can as far as what they did get, maybe limited last year, but that really goes for our whole roster. Free agents we brought in, our current draft picks we just selected that are just getting going, and then some of those younger players, those second, third year players that, it's really up to each individual guy how they fit into the team and how they can help us win, and that can change on a day-to-day basis based upon a guy, maybe the light comes on or maybe physically they take that next step, and all of a sudden as coaches, that's our job to then go find roles for those players within the best 53 we can find to go win football games.
what's your take on how the tight end position overall has evolved in the past 5-10 years or whatever, and what you want out of it?
Yeah, Kevin, it's a great question because I think it's evolved, and I think that's what kind of grabs headlines sometimes is what happens in the pass game and the route ability and the separation ability to kind of, in a lot of ways, attack matchups that maybe you can't at the receiver position depending on how teams are playing against you. But I still think no matter how much it's evolved, I still think the element of being a 3-down tight end and having a role in the run game, being able to protect when we want to max protect and kind of have those guys in there. Schematically, there's only so many things you can do, but when you do have a guy that can be a 3-down impact player, meaning on 3rd down you can target them as the first progression, but on 1st down you can run a run right behind them, knowing that they can do all those things. That's ultimately, Kevin, where I think the position, is still and will be, but there's no doubt that there's some dynamic playmaking ability in our league right now at that tight end position, and if you have it, you better not take it for granted because there's just not a lot of guys, that play this game that can do all those things at that position. It is a unique skill set that we're always on the hunt for, and we feel good about the guys in our room right now across, young guys, veteran guys we're counting on. We feel good about those guys in those roles.
What's kind of your philosophy on rookies in terms of when they get reps with the ones? Is it something where you want to kind of give them a chance to run with the ones, or do they have to earn that that kind of playing time with the first unit?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both a little bit. I know, we have a teaching progression for those young guys. We had the rookie mini camp, a lot of meeting time. They'll get extra meeting time throughout this spring, the way the rules kind of allow us to kind of pour into those guys. But I do think, to your point, you can earn it for sure, and guys will, and that's how we operate around here. We're going to put the best 11 guys out there, no matter that situation of offense, defense, or special teams. But I will say I think it's important sometimes. They might not even know that they're going to be in there for 2 or 3 reps with the ones, but we control that in this setting. And then just put them in there and see how they react. And maybe a guy reacts great. Maybe he learns a whole heck of a lot. But I think, the best teaching and the best learning can sometimes come on those reps where you're out there with the ones and you make a mistake and you can kind of, put that away, bank that rep, knowing that it's just the start of hopefully a long process. But in the end, I think that exposure is what helps us understand if that guy is capable of earning that role. And then more importantly, I think it's great for their teammates to see them in those settings, to know that when it's time to count on them, that they can do that.
These first few practices, your first few practices being head coach, I guess, pretty low key, but have you had any moments of kind of where it sort of hit you at all, I guess, that now you're responsible for this entire team?
Yeah, just little things, the clock, where we're going to operate on fields, how we're filming things. Just you're responsible for everything, and you realize that the opinions you may have had elsewhere at other times in your career about how Coach Mike Pettin was running a practice. Now I don't have to go ask Coach Pett, if we can change this or change that. I can just do that, and whatever I think is the best for the team, and then ultimately, there's just times where I think it's great because I can be, during those individual periods. I know we talked about it the other day, but I can literally be a part of as much or as little of any individual as I really want to be when the coaches are teaching, and more importantly, just be there, be around, be visible to the defense, let them know that I'm learning, their side of the ball just as much as they are, and I can compliment them on detailed things that they do within our coverages, within a pressure, how we stop the run, and they can look at me as not just an offensive head coach. That's really important for me, that the guys on defense and special teams know that I'm aware, I understand some of the things, maybe the challenging things we're asking them to do, and I think it overall just helps with me connecting with every guy on the roster, that they know what they get from me in the team setting, standing up in front of them, but also that one-on-one level of connection is huge for me, and it's something I don't take for granted.
Kevin, what are your impressions so far of Eric Kendricks, both as a player and then off the field? He's been a nominee for Man of the Year, been involved in the community, just overall impression.
Yeah, from day one, I've been so impressed by Eric and just his impact on our team, his impact as a leader, part of our leadership group that we have here, which I'm very, very fortunate in my first job as a head coach to have such a good group. I've spent a lot of time with those guys, but Eric, to me, when you're teaching a new defense, you got that, that inside middle linebacker position that really can drive a lot of the communication from the front to the back end. We've got guys at every level of our defense I feel really good about, but when you've got that guy in the middle of your defense, a core player, core leader on your team, I think it is just absolutely huge when you're teaching a new system, but then also where you can go with it really quickly, because his ability to not only do his individual job, but really be a big time part of what we're doing all 11 on defense.
Coach Zadarius has talked a couple times, I guess, of the fact that he and Daniil already kind of had a relationship, or foundation of a relationship before he came in, and now the two of them kind of seem attached at the hip. I guess, how much does that friendship or foundation of a friendship help them to perform well on the field together too, that chemistry?
Well, it's just little things. I mean, even this time of year where, we're not registering full speed reps and sacks and all those things, but I look over and see Daniil, Z, and Mike Smith, they're the position coach. I think he's one of the best in our league at coaching that position. And it's not just the X's and O's. It's not just the technique and fundamentals. It's building, that mindset amongst that group where, just like every position group hopefully is being pushed to connect and grow and kind of understand how they can support one another. But when your two best guys at that position that you're really counting on are connecting the way that they are, it's just like, Jordan and Eric at the linebacker position. It might be Dalvin and Harrison up front, those interior guys. When you start to see that, throughout a lot of position groups. You get excited as the head coach, and I just give our coaches a lot of credit for building an environment where that can happen on a daily basis. Even though we're limited with time that we can spend with these guys, even though we're limited with what we can do when we go out to practice, I just feel like day in and day out, that type of growth that you're seeing, it's real, it's authentic, and it's only going to help when things get a little bit more, real in the fall.
Final question?
Kevin, there was one trait, like one physical trait that you guys seem to kind of prioritize both in the draft and even just a tryout player you signed recently, was that 10-yard split of the 40. And maybe it's an obvious answer, but what does having that ability do in terms of what it allows players to do on both sides of the ball for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's no matter what position you're really at, I think that first step, those initial bursts of, being able to, go do your job just a little bit quicker in those first couple steps might be the difference between getting a hand on a ball or, springing a big run because you get a great fit on a block. Receivers, that initial burst, we're always coaching our guys to run off the football. And really that's every position because when you can play fast in those first 10 yards, a lot of times really good things will happen. And then ultimately, when you're talking about the awareness and the instincts that you kind of try to track and evaluate, it's great to have awareness and instincts, but even like what we talked about with Lewis Seen, he can see it, but then when it's time to go, he can go. And in those first 10 yards, I think you can really determine what is in a guy's body to be able to explosively go move to do whatever job they need to do, within playing this game. Because as much as we play on a big field, you try to spread them out on offense. You try to attack defenses. You try to attack defensively against offenses in space. Ultimately, the make or break type of plays in this league happen in that 10-yard, 5 to 10-yard confined area where, guys can really separate themselves. But really good question. You guys good?
Thank you. Thanks.